guys, and welcome back to another video on my channel. Today's video is going to be another video in the Halloween themed videos, and so because of that, today we're going to be talking about two urban legends. The first one I really thought had the perfect Halloween feel. We're going to be talking about the Ada Witch or the Ada Witch. And I just feel like that urban legend is so Halloween themed. Like, even though it wasn't made up for Halloween or anything like that, there are just a lot of like Halloween feels within that urban legend. And the second urban legend that I'm going to be sharing comes from a place that I actually have visited. And so that is why I kind of wanted to incorporate that one in here, because I thought it was interesting that I had actually gone and visited this spot. So with that all being said, let's get right into today's video. So like I said, the first urban legend that I wanted to talk about today is known as the Ada Witch. And this comes out of Ada, Michigan, and is about a haunting that takes place in the Findlay Cemetery in Ada, Michigan. This story starts in the 1800s when a young, beautiful woman gets married. Now, how exactly long she was married, we are not really sure, but she was not happy in this marriage. And so when her husband would go to sleep at night, she would get out of bed very, very quietly once she knew that he was for sure asleep, and she would sneak out of their house and go to the Findlay Cemetery, or the forest that's like near the Findlay Cemetery, and that is where she would meet her lover. This had gone on for some time, and I can't even really imagine, like, what kind of excuse would you make up for your significant other in your head when you're trying to think of the best when you wake up in the middle of the night and not only are they not in bed, but they aren't even in the house, and they didn't tell you they were going somewhere, and you can't call them on your cell phone because it's the 1800s. I just can't really wrap my head around that. I would be so shook. But anyways, this kept happening. Her husband kept waking up in the middle of the night. She wasn't there. He didn't know what to do. He went back to sleep, and so eventually he started to kind of get suspicious. He thought this was very, very strange. And so that is when he decided that he was going to kind of like spy on her. So one night they went to bed. He had pretended to fall asleep. She had gotten out of bed, got dressed, and snuck out of the house like she had done so many times before. But this time her husband wasn't really asleep, and he got up and followed her. That is when he followed her to the forest on the edge of the Findlay Cemetery, and that is when he saw her in her lover's embrace. This really, really angered the husband, so much to the point that he began to violently attack his wife. So much so that she ended up passing away. After killing his wife, he then proceeded to get into a very, very violent fight with her lover, and this ended up resulting in both the husband and the lover's death. So now all three of them were deceased: the husband, the lover, and the wife. Since that time, people who visit the Findlay Cemetery claim that you can hear people fighting when absolutely nobody is in the cemetery. You can hear the cries of a woman. They claim to see orbs all over the cemetery as well as the woods themselves. The general area, I believe, is called Honey Creek Avenue. That area is said to be really, really active with the haunting of this woman. And also Sideman Park is also another area where this woman is said to be frequently seen. Many people claim to see this woman walking around. She's a very beautiful woman with very long hair. She's in her like late 20s, and she is always seen wearing a very long whitish blue dress. Now that is the part that kind of reminded me of Halloween, but anyways, people claim to see orbs, they claim to see this woman, they claim to hear her cries when absolutely nobody else is around, and just the overall really creepy vibe that you would normally get in stories like this when people encounter a ghost. Now, I just said that many people who visit this cemetery in this general area who claim to have seen the Ada Witch say that she's absolutely breathtakingly beautiful, but something that I do have to verify is the encounters with this woman varies from person to person. Some people do say that she is absolutely breathtakingly beautiful, but other people say that she is absolutely horrifying. Some people who have claimed to have seen the Ada Witch say that yes, she is wearing this whitish dress, but it appears to be dirty, her hair appears to be dirty, and she has a huge gash on her face from where her husband had attacked her. On top of that, there is a gravestone in the cemetery that was dated 1870, and it belongs to a woman, and many people come and visit this gravestone and they leave gifts and small things on it, believing that this gravestone was belonging to the Ada Witch. However, I'm going to come back and talk about that a little bit more because there's more to that gravestone than what I'm saying right now. The story about the Ada Witch was published in 1982 in a book that was called the haunted houses of Grand Rapids. And the Ada Witch story really got a lot of attention again when the Blair Witch Project movie came out, for obvious reasons. But why they're calling this woman a witch, I'm not really sure, because she isn't a witch at all. I mean, she was cheating on her husband, and that obviously is terrible, but it does not mean that she is a witch. One of the most famous sightings of the Ada Witch, which I read online multiple times, was by a woman by the name of Julia. She told a news anchor that she had been driving home one night. She was passing the Finlay Cemetery and she was on Honey Creek Avenue when all of a sudden she saw what appeared to be a woman standing on the side of the road. This road is kind of like on a hill, and she was reaching just the top of the hill when she noticed this woman. She said that she appeared to be sitting in the middle of the road. She was wearing a bluish white dress, and she had her arms up in the air as if she was asking the woman for her help. Julia didn't want to slow down just in case this was some kind of trap, but after she went home and thought about this for a little bit, she came back and said that she is almost 100% sure that she had an encounter with the Ada Witch. This really traumatized this woman, Julia, and she told her husband and her family and anybody that she could about her encounter because she was feeling crazy. But many people do claim to have experienced something similar or had a similar encounter with the Ada Witch, so it wasn't really that unbelievable. However, this really traumatized Julia, and so for that reason, she didn't take this route home for several years. On top of that, I do just want to mention again that there isn't any clear sign that the Ada Witch, or the woman who is dubbed the Ada Witch, was a witch at all. Again, she cheated on her husband, which, whatever, but that doesn't mean that she was partaking in witchcraft, and there is no evidence to suggest that she was partaking in witchcraft. And I know that some of you are probably thinking that I chose to talk about this case because it was called the Ada Witch, and you're probably thinking, like, if she wasn't a witch, why are you talking about this? But that actually isn't why I chose to talk about this case. I feel like the fact that it is a woman in a cemetery with long dark hair and a white flowy dress is just such a Halloween vibe. I remember reading like ghost stories when I was younger, and there was always a woman in a white dress, you know? It's really like classic Halloween story. And the fact that there could be some truth to this is very interesting, and I thought it would make for a great Halloween themed video. So let's go back now and talk about that gravestone that I had briefly mentioned. That was dated 1870. So this gravestone belongs to a woman by the name of Sarah McMillan. And many people, for whatever reason, believe because of that year and where she is buried, that Sarah McMillan actually is the woman who inspired this kind of Ada Witch tale. However, I don't know how true that is. While I was doing my research, I had actually found that somebody had dug really deep into Sarah McMillan's case, and they'd found that yes, she did pass away in 1870. However, she died from a thyroid issue and not by being murdered by her husband. However, there is nothing to confirm this at all. I couldn't find any death certificates or anything like that. So we are really left without any answers. However, if Sarah McMillan is not the Ada Witch, then that means we aren't even any closer to really identifying who this woman was. We aren't actually even sure if Sarah McMillan was the Ada Witch. Many people would still come to Finlay Cemetery to visit this grave and treat it as if this grave belonged to the witch. Like I said, people would leave gifts on it and do all these kinds of things like that. And I do think that that kind of makes sense for the scare tactic. This might not sound great, but you know when teenagers go and they want to get scared, they visit a cemetery, they do things like that. It makes sense that somebody would say, you know, this cemetery was built and this gravestone is from 1870 and she passed away in 1870, so you know, put two and two together, maybe this is the Ada Witch. Kids go and visit the area for a scare. However, there is more to this than that. The way that people were treating this gravestone was just absolutely sickening. Ghost hunters came to visit Sarah McMillan's grave, believing that she was the Ada Witch, and just absolutely destroyed the entire site. These ghost hunters came to the cemetery to visit that grave, and they absolutely, again, destroyed it. They smashed it. They took pieces of Sarah McMillan's grave with them that you could later find online on eBay or Amazon and things like that. with the title Take the Ada Witch Home With You. It was just absolutely sickening. Whether Sarah McMillan was the Ada Witch or not, you would think that they would be treating her gravesite with a little bit more respect, especially because they are ghost hunters. You would think that this would be something that they would be used to, but they just absolutely destroyed this. So because of that, I guess protocol in that cemetery is a little bit stricter than your average cemetery. It does close at a certain time, and it is heavily monitored by police just to make sure that no other graves in that cemetery are being disrespected like this, because it is just, again, absolutely sickening. Can you even imagine? Because of this, I do think that when you do go and visit this cemetery, if you would like to go visit this cemetery, you do have to make an appointment. But if you do go to visit this cemetery, please remember to be respectful. I mean, if you go visit any of the places that I talk about, go and be respectful, especially in a cemetery, but really anywhere, especially, I mean, a cemetery, that's a little bit different, but you really don't want to ruin the experience for somebody else. I feel like saying that about a cemetery is kind of weird, but anything really, even what I'm talking about next, you kind of want to be respectful as to not ruin it for the people who want to come next. So this next one that I want to talk about, again, is a place that I visited several years ago, and it is called Ghost Road or Ghost Rock, and it is located in Port Perry, Ontario. I haven't been to too many places where there are urban legends and things like that, so the fact that I had visited this one and I was trying to find a second topic for today's video, and this had popped up and I was like, hey, I've been there, made me want to talk about this in today's video. So I hope that even though this is going to be short, you guys still do enjoy this story. So this road with this rock is located on a place that is called Scugog Island, and it is known to be a hotspot for local legends and phenomena. And some of these stories date all the way back to the 50s, but the story that I'm going to be sharing with you guys today is the one that I heard all of those years ago when I went and visited this place for my very own self. This story is from 1957, and it was said that on this day a young man was out riding his motorcycle, and just being your typical boy, he was trying to test the limits. He was going extremely fast, trying to go as fast as he possibly could, and everything was going seemingly fine until he realized that he was quickly approaching a crossing with the roads. There was a road going this way and a road going this way. It was kind of like an intersection, but there was nothing behind it. So when he was doing this, he was really approaching this very, very quickly. He was trying to brake, but his brakes weren't working, and he was coming up to this point very, very quickly. So the chances of another car coming down that road would have been quite high, so he was probably terrified for his life. His brakes were not working, the man was not able to stop, and he ended up driving his motorcycle into a field and crashing full speed into a fence that ended up decapitating him. At the end of this road, there is a rock, and apparently that rock has been sitting there for years and years and years. And when this man got decapitated, his head is said to have bounced off that rock. Many people say now that when you're driving down that road, you can hear a motorcycle when there isn't one on the road. You can see motorcycle lights when there, again, is not a motorcycle on the road. And there's just a lot of strange things that are said to have taken place in this general area since that accident had happened. The strange thing, though, is that not all of these ghost stories do have to do with this man who crashed. Allegedly, this area is an extremely hot spot for accidents and things like that. Maybe not so much today, but way back then, the lights weren't good, and it is said that many people had accidents on this road. Since that time, many people claim that while you're sitting on that road, you can hear cars that aren't there, you can hear people talking. Sometimes you'll see a car coming at you when there actually isn't one. And when you're sitting on that road, it is said that you just get an overall, general, really bad feeling of dread. It's not a good place to be. People claim that it's really creepy. They see orbs like you would in another haunted area. And the overall scenery and everything like that is just very creepy and gives people bad vibes. Again, this area is known to the locals as a paranormal hotspot. Many people claim to see ghost children there, UFOs. Not all of these paranormal things are related, but this is just said to be an overall paranormal hotspot. Now, again, I went and visited this place when I was a teenager. I went with my mom and some of my friends and my sister because I've always been into this kind of stuff, so I was really begging my mom. I was like, please, can you take us there? So she did. And we got there, and apparently you're supposed to park your car and wait for something to happen. And I do have to say that I did have kind of this creepy feeling, But I think I was hyping myself up as you would in this kind of situation, and I personally did not see absolutely anything while I was sitting on that road. Nobody that I was with saw absolutely anything. We almost hit the rock because we didn't see it. But besides that, that was all that really happened. Nothing else really, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing paranormal. But many people do claim that they do have very scary paranormal experiences on Ghost Road in this area. But guys, that is going to be it for today's video. I know today's video was a little bit of a shorter one, but Friday's video will be a little bit of a longer one. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below what you'd like to see in my future videos, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.